Hey, it's Gregg Stewart, and I'm here. Joe at Crystal Lake invited me to come on and share some of my favorite tips and tools that I've learned over the years about crafting better stories. Before I start, a quick disclaimer. These tips and tools I'm about to share in these videos are not rules to follow. Anytime I discover a way to make a story better, more compelling, more emotionally resonant, why not make that upgrade? Thanks to Joe at Crystal Lake for inviting me, and thanks for joining me. Okay, let's jump in. 6 steps to develop compelling characters. When it comes to developing characters, I like to look to screenwriters. While novelists get the benefit of a full page, if not a whole chapter, to develop their characters, screenwriters need to hook you in a paragraph or less. It's one thing to tell us what your characters are wearing, the color of their hair, their general demeanor, and another to tell us who that character is. So here are 6 steps to flesh out your character's backstory and understand their motivations. And while they're all helpful on their own, you want to stick around for all 6 because they matter cumulatively as they all come together. So buckle up. Okay, I got these first 4 from Greta Gerwig. Give your character a want, a drive, a fear, and a secret, and soon they will start having a mind of their own. Let's look closer at how great this advice is. So steps 1 and 2, the want and the drive. In every story, the core questions are who wants what and why can't they get it? That's the want, that's the drive to try to get it. Here's an example. In Brian Keene's book, The Rising, the main character, Jim, is in West Virginia, and he needs to get to his son in New Jersey, which seems like not that big of a deal until you realize there are demon-possessed zombies running amok at all points in between. What Jim wants is to reunite with his son and keep him safe. What drives him across multiple state lines and braving those demon zombies is the love for his son. The drive also shows up in the character's personality, how they attain their want. And with Jim, it's not just a love for his son, but a combination of stealth and brute force to kind of get his way across state lines. So his want and his drive are clear here, and it's a pretty easy example to understand. But a character's want or drive are in just about every story you'll ever read, so start looking for it as you read and see where it shows up. Someone always wants something, and they have a way of going about getting it. That will eventually fail before they get to the end of the story, which leads to our next step. Step 3, the fear. If you can give your character a fear, something that grips them, you just gave them a really great obstacle to overcome before the end of the story. In the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark, we learn Indiana Jones has a fear of snakes. Of course, the fear must be confronted in a pivotal moment of the film. And as predictable as it may seem in hindsight, it's awesome. We almost root for it to happen. We love seeing characters overcome their fears in ways we cannot. We want it to happen. Step 4, the secret. The secret is the part of the character that we know as the reader, but the rest of the characters likely do not. Most people enjoy being let in on secrets. It makes us feel like we're in the know, like we're special. A character's deepest, darkest secret often comes up in superhero stories where the villain threatens to expose the superhero's identity. But secrets can drive the story in a lot of other ways. Common tropes, especially in horror, are the weight of a shared secret. This is where an incident from the past resurfaces to threaten multiple characters. Other times, the secret can be a lie or a lie of omission that the character now has to perpetrate through the story until at some point they are found out. This one comes up often in rom-coms, but there's a lot of great ways to use this one. Sometimes a character is keeping someone else's secret to their own detriment. This is like the character of Ellen in George Agnew Chambers' The Red House. It's also the character of Michael in Anya Alborn's Brother. If you haven't read either of those, prepare to be both gobsmacked and traumatized. So, as Greta Gerwig tells us, you want to create your characters' want, their drive, their fear, their secret. Also, please note, this is not a grab bag of traits. All of these things ought to connect. The want, the drive, the fear, the secret. This is how you can build a really compelling character. They're not arbitrary. They all will mean something later in the story, and I'll talk about that in a second. While all 4 of these traits will help ground your characters, make them more dimensional, step 5 is like the foundation those pillars stand on. Step 5, the wound. Here's the question. What's your character's wound? What are they bringing with them into this story that's happened in their life that has shaped their worldview? Writing from the wound goes back to Greek mythology, where sometimes characters had a literal wound, like Chiron the Minotaur, who could heal just about anybody, but could never quite heal the wound in his leg from a poisoned arrow. The metaphor's clear here. Or perhaps Odysseus from Homer's The Odyssey, who was known on the battlefield by the scar on his thigh. Now, these are literal wounds, but there are a lot of figurative and emotional and mental wounds. Those are the ones that are more common in modern writing. But the wound goes back a long ways. We see it in modern day shows like with Brad Ingelsby's limited series Task. He's awesome at writing from the wound. Every character on this show has been traumatized by past incidents, and we meet them in the aftermath of that trauma, each now shaped by that mental scar. There are many examples of the mental or emotional wound or scar. In popular literature, there's Severus Snape from the Harry Potter books, or Tony Soprano, or even Batman. When we explore our character's wound or trauma, we ask ourselves, what happened to them, and how has it shaped their worldview? How does the wound inform their actions within the story? And while your character's wound could be something literal, a scar like the Greeks, or a mental or emotional scar from some past trauma, here's a little subset within this video of 5 childhood traumas that many people suffer from that can really help to develop a character.
Writing is a solitary pursuit. Just you, the darkness, and the growing suspicion that nobody will ever read this. But what if it didn't have to be that way? Joe Meinhardt's The Shadows and Ink Mastermind is almost 50 authors, editors, publishers, and artists who meet online every 2 weeks to talk shop, share what's working, and occasionally remind each other that the industry hasn't killed them yet. There's a dedicated forum, there are guest speakers, there is genuine, unglamorous, useful support for your career. We're not here to tell you writing is easy. We're here because it isn't. Dark fiction, serious careers, zero pretense. Find us through the link in the description. We saved you a seat.
Number 1, rejection. Characters who carry the wound of rejection will tend to feel unwanted. They'll have trouble fitting in. They'll expect a no everywhere they look and that nothing will turn out for them. This is Stephen King's Carrie, and also Frankenstein's monster, one of the most sympathetic characters in all of literature. Number 2, abandonment. Characters who carry this wound will likely stay loyal too long, or perhaps bolt when things start feeling too real to avoid being hurt. This is Cosette in Les Mis, or Eleven from Stranger Things, or also Michael from Anya Alborn's brother, which I mentioned earlier. Number 3, humiliation. This wound means the character will lack confidence and feel unworthy. Or maybe they've become the types where nothing can shame or embarrass them anymore. This is Gollum, also Severus Snape again. Number 4, betrayal. Characters who carry the wound of betrayal are far less trusting of others. It typically comes with a loss of innocence, which might leave them with a hard edge or even paranoia or anxiety. They believe everyone's about to screw them over and loyalty means nothing. The hero of your story can suffer from the wound of betrayal, but it also works really well for villains. Classic examples are the Count of Monte Cristo, or the character of Rose in Get Out. Number 5, injustice. These characters will either sink into the depths of apathy, or they will fight for the underdog and what's right. They tend to vacillate between self-effacing and self-righteous, and will likely rail against anyone who uses their power to suppress rather than uplift. This is Setha in Beloved, and also Andy in The Shawshank Redemption. These 5 childhood wounds are an incredible resource for developing deep characters that are worthy of our empathy. It also gives them dimension and potential flaws they need to overcome by the end of the story. As an ulterior motive, I've also found that exploring these wounds within your characters is also an opportunity to take a look at them within ourselves as writers. I always say one of the greatest gifts you'll ever get from your creativity is what you can learn about yourself, what you can potentially heal. So looking at wounds within your characters is a great opportunity for you to reflect on your own experience around these wounds. It's powerful stuff. Okay, lastly, we're at step number 6, and I like to call this one the sacred dilemma. I saved my favorite for last. And the 6th step asks the question, what does this character risk losing to attain their goal or their want? What sacred part of themselves might they have to sacrifice on this journey? When a protagonist steps out to attain their want, they're inevitably met with obstacles, most of them external, but there's also the internal obstacle, some fundamental piece that can get lost along the way. It could be their innocence, their integrity, their kindness, their joy. Here are some examples. Katniss Everdeen wants to keep her sister safe, but in order to do that, she must survive the Hunger Games and become not a protector, but a killer. In The Godfather, Michael Corleone wants to stay out of the family business, but once his father is targeted, he gets pulled right into that world. He crosses the line. He tells himself he's doing it just once, but then the line disappears for him. In The Little Mermaid, Ariel wants to live amongst humans, but in order to do that, she has to give up a literal part of herself in order to be part of that world. In The Outsiders, Johnny and Ponyboy find themselves pushed to the brink. They push back and not without consequences, but all along the way, while they're on the run, they keep that mantra in place. stay gold. Stay gold. That's the sacred part that can get lost along the journey. And I gave a wide range of examples to show that this happens across genres. In some of these examples, the character retains that sacred part of themselves. In some, they figure out how to get it back, and in others, they lose it forever. It's your story, so there's no right way to do this. But if you can get clear about what your character stands to lose, it creates a powerful tension and moral dilemma that gets your readers to lean in. So those are the 6 steps for developing compelling characters, and here's why it matters. Your story is leading somewhere. The most important question it needs to answer is, what's different? What's changed? How has the character changed along this journey? Those are the stories we come back to again and again. We see a character arc, a place for them to start and a place for them to end up. This is the power of catharsis in great storytelling. When we see a character heal some wound, or at least find a new framing of it, when we see them face their greatest fears, when we see them confront their secrets, when we see them using their drive and realizing they need to expand or grow, that their drive no longer serves them in their want, or even sometimes when their want might change partway through the story, and they find out what they thought they wanted isn't what they really needed. So expect that the climax of your story ought to involve your character's drive no longer working, their secret being revealed, their fear being confronted, or their wound being reframed, or even the sacred dilemma of trying to retain that part of themselves, or maybe they lose it. And if all or even some of those things must be looked at by the end of your story, it's a good idea to start thinking about them at the start. By the time we reach the end of your story, the climactic moment, your character will either have to tell the truth, let go, take a risk, or forgive. Likely all 4. That catharsis, that pivotal moment of change, is what makes character arcs so compelling and climaxes so rewarding. But the setup can't be arbitrary. It must feel earned. Let us know in the comments some of your favorite characters in film and literature, and why. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel to get more writing tips and news on upcoming releases. I'm Gregg Stewart, and look for my book, The Isocron Treatment, coming this fall from Crystal Lake Publishing. Now, go write something.